Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for another one here at Annie Narrates. The title for today's story goes like this. Father-in-law boasted at his third wedding that he is glad his choice in women isn't as bad as his son's, so I responded with this one thing and left the venue. 4 hours later, I got a call from his fiance, and she said, "Thank you for saving me." My name is Evelyn, 26 female, and I married my husband Henry, 27 male, 2 years ago. We might have gotten married 2 years ago, but our story started when we met online. Back then, I was just a regular person trying to find someone special, and that's when I came across Henry. We started chatting, and you won't believe it, but we instantly clicked. It felt like we had known each other forever, and that's when I realized that there was something special about him. We began talking every day, sharing our thoughts and dreams. It wasn't long before we decided to meet in person, and the connection we felt online was even stronger face to face. Dating was a blast. We enjoyed going to the movies, trying out new restaurants, and even cooking together. Henry has this knack for making the simplest moments fun and memorable. His sense of humor is contagious, and I found myself laughing all the time. 2 years ago, we decided to tie the knot, and it was the happiest day of my life. Our families were there to celebrate with us, but there was one person who didn't seem too thrilled. David, 52 male. Unfortunately, he has never been kind to me, and it makes family gatherings a bit challenging. Despite this, Henry and I focus on the love that we share and the life we're building together. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our daily lives. I work as a nurse, and my schedule is often hectic. Henry, on the other hand, is a software developer who works from home. He's incredibly supportive of my career and understands the demands it brings. In fact, he takes on a significant portion of the chores at home. You wouldn't believe how clean and organized our place is, thanks to his efforts. But let me be clear, I don't just sit back and relax. When Henry's workload gets heavy, I step in and take care of things around the house. It's a give-and-take relationship where we both contribute to making our home a happy and comfortable place. There are days when I come back tired from work, and Henry surprises me with a home-cooked meal or a simple note to lift my spirits. One thing I truly appreciate about Henry is how he makes sure that we're both involved in decision-making. We're a team, and we support each other in everything we do. If I have a tough day at work, he's there to listen and provide comfort. On his busy days, I make sure that he has a relaxing environment to come home to. Our understanding and communication make our relationship strong. We've learned to appreciate each other's strengths and support each other in our weaknesses. Life may throw challenges our way, but with Henry by my side, every obstacle seems easier to overcome. But because of this, David often taunts Henry about how he's not much of a man. He often makes these not-so-nice remarks, saying Henry isn't much of a man because he does chores around the house. David's old-fashioned, thinking men should only bring home the bacon and not touch a sponge or a broom. It's not just a one-time thing. Whenever he gets the chance, David goes on about how a real man shouldn't be doing any housework. According to him, a man's sole job is to make money. He even told me once that I had turned his son into something he shouldn't be. But here's the thing. Henry's always been supportive, loving, and caring. The chores are just a small part of our teamwork. This mindset of David isn't something new. Henry shared stories of how his dad was the same way during his childhood. It wasn't easy for Henry to grow up. He faced disappointment and frustration because he didn't fit into his dad's narrow idea of what a man should be. Henry, being the kind-hearted person he is, struggles with not meeting his dad's expectations. These memories still linger, and there are times when Henry gets disappointed by David's comments. You know, there were moments in Henry's life when he felt like he wasn't good enough for his dad. It's hard when someone you care about doesn't see the value in the things that you believe in. Despite all this, Henry has grown into an amazing person. He's learned to stand up for what he believes in, even if he goes against what his dad thinks. And you know what? That's something I admire about him. It takes strength to be true to yourself, especially when those close to you have different views. David divorced Henry's mother when Henry was 17 years old. Even when they were married, things weren't all sunshine and rainbows. They separated when Henry was just a little over 9 years old. That's pretty young, right? They officially divorced when Henry hit the big 17. It must have been tough for a teenager to go through his parents splitting up. And here's the kicker. During their time together, David wasn't the most faithful partner. He, well, cheated on Henry's mom. It's a pretty tough thing for a family to go through, and it surely left its mark on Henry. After the divorce, David didn't waste any time. He married another woman just a year later. Now, you would think that he learned his lesson, but nope, he ended up cheating on his second wife too. Imagine that, a repeat of the same old story. Predictably, his second wife had had enough. She decided to call it quits after finding out about the cheating. It's a sad thing when trust is broken like that, especially in a marriage. So they divorced about 2 years ago. You would think that David might learn from his mistakes, right? But oh no, the story doesn't end there. After the second divorce, David jumped back into the dating game and started seeing someone named Ava. Now here's the kicker. Ava is only 32 years old. Yup, you read that right. It's a bit strange when you think about it. But hey, love works in mysterious ways, they say. So you see, David's love life has been a roller coaster, with twists and turns that you wouldn't see coming. It's like a drama series, but it's real life. And through it all, Henry's been there, witnessing the ups and downs of his dad's relationships. So, David proposed to Ava a few months ago. They were almost set to tie the knot about a week ago. You'd think it's all a lovey-dovey, right? Well, get ready for the twist. At the rehearsal dinner, things took an unexpected turn. We were all sitting around, munching on some good food, when David decided that it was time for a toast. Now, toasts are usually all about spreading love and good vibes, but not this one. David started off by talking about how he, despite his age, managed to charm Ava. It was all normal until he dropped a bombshell. He said that he was glad that his taste in women wasn't as bad as his son's. Can you believe that? It was like a record scratch in a movie. Everyone just froze. Now let me back up a bit. The vibe was already a bit off at the rehearsal dinner. David's relationships and history had created some awkwardness, but nobody expected him to take a jab at Henry and me like that. It was like he opened a can of worms, and everyone was staring at each other, not sure how to react. Henry, being the calm guy he is, tried to brush it off with a smile, but you could see the hurt in his eyes. I felt a mix of shock and anger. I mean, who says something like that at their own rehearsal dinner? The room fell silent for a moment before people awkwardly tried to change the subject. It was like the elephant in the room, and no one wanted to acknowledge it. Ava looked uncomfortable, probably regretting the choice of the spotlight for her big night. You could feel the tension like a cloud hanging over the room. It was one of those moments where you wish you could just hit the rewind button and start the evening over. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Despite the uncomfortable atmosphere, the evening carried on, and the wedding did happen as planned. But that toast lingered in the air, casting a shadow over what should have been a joyous occasion. And I decided that I had had enough. So, after David dropped that shocker of a comment about Henry, I couldn't just sit there and take it. This was the first time he publicly humiliated me, and I decided it was time to speak up. With my heart pounding, I stood up, holding my glass like a shield. I said, "Alright folks, it's my turn for a toast." You could feel the tension in the air, like we were on the edge of a roller coaster about to drop. I took a deep breath and let it all out. Let's raise our glasses to the man who walked away when his wife needed him the most during postpartum. But guess what? He walked back in when he was done fooling around. And what did he do? He left her again, all alone with a child to raise on her own. I could see some jaws dropping, but I wasn't done. Cheers to the guy who still thinks it's cool to flirt with my friends whenever he spots them. He even tried sliding into their DMs long after he started dating Ava. The room was silent, and I felt a mix of nerves and anger. I looked straight at David and said, "And here's a real wonder. The man who doesn't even know the meaning of the word commitment. It's almost a miracle that someone as amazing as Henry could be his son." I told him straight up, "Don't bother looking for us at the wedding, because neither of us will be attending." And with that, I put my glass down, feeling a mix of relief and empowerment. You could cut the tension with a knife, and I wasn't sure how people would react. But you know what? It was a moment of standing up for myself and for Henry, who deserved better than the words his dad had thrown at him. I stood there after dropping my truth bomb, and you could practically hear everyone's jaws hitting the floor. The room was silent, and I glanced at Henry, who had this sly smile on his face. It was like a mix of shock and satisfaction. Without missing a beat, I told Henry, "Let's bounce. We need to get out of here." He nodded, and we made our exit from that awkward rehearsal dinner. The venue was left in stunned silence, and we just needed to breathe and process what went down. As we headed home, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Henry was smiling, probably because someone finally stood up to his dad's nonsense. I, on the other hand, was still processing the fact that I had just spilled some serious tea in front of everyone. Back at home, we sat down and tried to make sense of it all. It was like a replay in our minds: the shocking comment, my impromptu toast, and the swift exit. We both needed a moment to digest the craziness of the evening. Henry, being the supportive guy he is, put his arm around me. We talked about how wild it all was and how we weren't expecting things to escalate like that. We also talked about how it felt good to stand up for ourselves and not let David's negativity ruin our night. But the drama did not end at the rehearsal dinner. About 4 hours later, my phone rang, and guess who it was? Ava. Buckle up, because this part gets even crazier. Ava spilled the beans on what happened after we left. It turns out that after my toast, she and David got into a major showdown. Remember how I mentioned David's flirtatious tendencies? Well, Ava decided to investigate, and guess what she found in his phone? Brace yourself. He was still flirting with other girls online, and she even stumbled upon a Tinder account. Here they were, on the brink of getting married, and he was still up to his old tricks. Ava said, "Thank you for saving me." She also told me that I opened her eyes to the truth and made her face it head on. She admitted that she'd always felt a little uneasy, sensing that David might be hiding things, but she brushed it off as overthinking. My toast, it turns out, was a reality check she needed. Ava was grateful she had the courage to confront the truth before saying "I do." Imagine if she found out about all this after tying the knot. She called off the wedding on the spot, leaving David stranded at the venue. She even cancelled all the deposits for the big day. Ava told me that David got super distressed and angry. He was caught red-handed, and there was no talking his way out of it. He tried to defend himself, but the evidence was right there on his phone. Both Ava and David had put their money into the wedding, so when she cancelled everything, she lost a chunk of cash. It wasn't easy on her wallet, that's for sure. But here's the silver lining. It's way better to lose some money than to get legally stuck with someone like David. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Sure, Ava took a hit financially, but at least she dodged a bullet. David might have messed with her emotions, but she didn't let him mess with her life in the long run. I'm just grateful that David's actions didn't lead to another woman's life being ruined. Sometimes standing up for what's right and exposing the truth can save someone from a lifetime of heartache. So, while the situation had its complications, the bigger picture is that Ava escaped a potentially disastrous marriage. I couldn't help but feel a mix of shock and satisfaction. I was shocked that things had taken such a turn, and satisfied that maybe, just maybe, my toast had done some justice. It's not every day that a toast leads to uncovering a secret Tinder account and the cancellation of a wedding. Hold on tight, because things took a dark turn after that wild wedding cancellation. David, not taking the whole situation well, blamed me straight away. He was upset, to say the least. What followed was a series of unsettling events that left me and Henry genuinely worried about my safety. David, fueled by anger and embarrassment, didn't hold back. He started bombarding me with phone calls. And it wasn't the friendly phone calls, obviously. No, these calls were fouled with threats and nasty words. I made the decision not to respond or pick up because engaging with that kind of negativity was only going to make things worse. But here's the thing, David wasn't ready to let it go. He continued with the calls, escalating the threats. It felt like he couldn't handle the fact that his actions had consequences. Instead of reflecting on his own behavior, he decided to lash out, and I became the target. Henry and I were genuinely concerned about my safety. David wasn't just upset. He was the type of guy who couldn't handle being humiliated. That made the whole situation even more alarming. It felt like a storm was brewing, and we didn't know when or how it would hit. As the threats continued, we decided it was time to take action. We documented everything, every call, every message, just in case we needed evidence. It felt like we were in some kind of twisted suspense movie, not knowing what David might do next. We talked to the authorities, explained the situation, and sharing the evidence that we had collected. It was a difficult step to take, but safety came first. We wanted to make sure that David understood the gravity of his actions and that the law was watching. In the midst of all this chaos, it was hard not to feel a constant sense of unease. Every phone ring became a potential source of anxiety, wondering if it was David on the other end. It's not a feeling anyone should have to experience, and it was especially tough knowing that the person causing it was someone who should have been a part of our family. One night, Henry and I were jolted awake by the blaring sound of my car alarm. We rushed to the window, and guess what we saw? My car has a broken window. Fear kicked in, and Henry dialed the police. We were on the edge, thinking, is this connected to everything that went down with David? The police showed up, but after a thorough check, they couldn't find anything missing. My car was damaged, but nothing was taken. Now you must know where our minds went first. Given all the drama with David, he became the prime suspect in our minds, but there was no concrete proof linking him to the car incident. The whole situation left us feeling uneasy. We took extra precautions, double-checking our surroundings, and keeping an eye out for anything unusual. It felt like we were detectives in our own little drama, trying to connect the dots and figure out if David was behind this or if it was just a random act. The next morning, imagine my surprise when my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Guess who it was? None other than David, lurking on the other end. And what he said sent shivers down my spine. He warned me to be careful, claiming that the neighborhood I lived in wasn't safe anymore. Now, I wasn't about to take this lightly. I immediately shared the unsettling call with a friend of mine who worked as a paralegal at a law firm. You would think a call like that would be enough to get a restraining order, right? Well, not so fast. My friend explained that, unfortunately, without solid proof tying David to these incidents, getting a restraining order wasn't going to be a walk in the park. It was a frustrating reality check. Here I was, feeling like I was walking on eggshells, and the legal options seemed limited. It's like one of those thriller movies, not knowing how to protect yourself when someone's making your life feel like a suspense thriller. Things were getting scary, let me tell you. After that chilling call from David, worry crept in, and I knew it was time to buckle down on safety. Henry, being the superhero he is, started dropping me off and picking me up from work. But that wasn't all. We went the extra mile to turn our home into a fortress. We decided to beef up our security game and installed a brand new security camera. Now, our house had an extra set of eyes, keeping watch around the clock. I felt like I was living in a spy movie. Every move, every sound was being monitored. Henry and I believed that taking these measures was essential to creating a safe haven in the midst of the chaos. But the caution didn't stop there. We changed the locks on our doors, just to be on the safe side. It was a small step, but it gave us a sense of control in a situation where everything felt uncertain. We wanted our home to be a place of refuge, not a constant source of worry. Despite all these precautions, there was a constant feeling of being on guard. It's like living with a lingering shadow, not knowing when or where it might strike. The security measures brought a sense of relief, but the underlying unease remained. Just a few days ago, David showed up at our doorstep, and he wasn't exactly in his right mind. Nope, he was drunk and ready to cause a scene. So there I was, facing this wild situation, and David started yelling all sorts of nasty stuff at me. It was like a storm of words, and it felt pretty scary. But you know what was different this time? Our trusty security camera was on duty, catching every single bit of his chaotic visit. The camera didn't miss a beat. It recorded the whole episode from the yelling to the threats. This time we had proof. Solid evidence that could speak louder than any words. No way we were letting this slide. I immediately filed a complaint against David. It was time to bring all the evidence to light and let the law handle this mess. Now we're not just sitting back and hoping for the best. We've taken this to the next level. We're waiting for the court to hear our plea, armed with the recordings that lay bare the reality of David's actions. We hope that I am able to get a restraining order and leave this drama behind. Fast forward to the hearing. We laid out all our cards, and guess what? Victory was on our side. I have officially been granted a restraining order against David. Our attorney dug up some interesting dirt on David. It turns out he's had a couple of run-ins with the law before, a DUI and a road rage incident. The judge didn't take kindly to that, and with the evidence piling up, bam, the restraining order was granted, and it was for 3 years. We're crossing our fingers that by the time those 3 years roll around, David will have moved on and found a better path. It's a relief, let me tell you. Having that legal protection in place is like having my very own security blanket. It's not just about keeping David away, it's about reclaiming our lives and putting this whole chaotic chapter behind us. Here's to hoping the restraining order serves as a clear message. The drama stops here and we're moving forward. I've had a few heart-to-heart talks with Ava. It turns out he didn't spare her either. David bombarded her with calls, spewing a bunch of hurtful words. It's like he couldn't handle the fact that things didn't go his way. But Ava didn't let his toxic behavior bring her down. She packed her bags and moved back to her parents' place for a while. She's been doing well. It's like she hit the reset button on her life, leaving the drama behind. So Henry's mom dropped a bombshell. David lost his job. Turns out he made quite the scene at his workplace. He strolled into the office completely sloshed, not just once, but multiple times. And that's not even the worst part. The guy got physically violent with some of his colleagues. It's mind-boggling how someone can let things spiral so out of control. His actions not only affected his own life, but also the lives of those around him. Now here I am, just wanted to put all this madness behind us. The whole situation has snowballed into something way beyond that I could have ever imagined. I spoke up when I was hurting and humiliated, never thinking it would explode into this colossal mess. If I had known it would turn into such a disaster, I'm not sure I would have found the courage to speak up in the first place. As for David, he's created his own storm, showing up to work drunk and getting violent. It's a recipe for disaster. It's a wonder he didn't see the consequences coming. I can't help but feel a mix of shock and disbelief at how someone's life can take such a nosedive. Hey there, it's been a bit, but guess what? There's some scoop from David's side. After losing his job, things took a tumble. Job hunting didn't quite work out for him, and he had to wave goodbye to his condo, sell it and everything. We're not sure where he's crashing these days, but the latest word is that he's somewhere in the Lone Start State, Texas. The good news, he's been sticking to the rules of the restraining order. On another note, I've been keeping tabs on Ava. We've turned into real pals. She's back from her parents' place, doing better than ever. This might just be the last update on this wild journey. Big thanks to everyone who sent support and suggestions my way. It means the world. Here's to closing this chapter and looking ahead to brighter days. Cheers! And that was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash the like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again. We'll be seeing you in the next one.